This week we read in Parshas Vayakel. Vayakel Moshe es kol hadas b'nei Yisrael. Moshe assembled the complete congregation of Bnei Yisrael, v'yomar aleim, and he said to them, Ela advorim asher tziva Hashem lasos osam. These are the things that Hashem has commanded me to do. So over here, there's a Yalkut, which is the Midrash. Vayakel Moshe Rabboseinu Bali Agodo Omrim. Our rabbis, I gotta say, Mitchilas HaTorah Vatsofa Ein Bo Parsha Nema Barosha Vayakel. From the beginning to the end, one doesn't find a portion which begins with Vayakel, and he assembled. Elazos Bilvod. This is the only portion. Omra Kodesh Baruch Hu. Asil Kilos Gedolos Udroshel Lifneim Berabim Hilcha Shabbos. Hashem says to Moshe, gather large assemblies and lecture before them in a public setting the laws of Shabbos. Kedei sheyilmudu mimcha doros haboyim lahakil kilos b'chol Shabbos u'Shabbos. So the future generations will learn from you that on Shabbos they should gather large gatherings of Jews. V'lichnos of boti medroshos, they should gather into the study halls. L'lamed lahoros liYisrael divrei Torah isav heter, to teach and to elucidate to the Klal Yisrael the words of Torah which pertain to isav heter, what's not permitted, what is permitted. Kedei sheishmi hagodol miskalis bin bonai, so that my great name should be extolled among my children. By having large assemblies and teaching them the laws of Shabbos which pertain to what's not permitted, what is permitted, this will cause that my name should be extolled among my children. Now, the obvious question is, a person is fully proficient in the laws of Shabbos. How does somehow that cause that Hashem's name should be extolled among his children? How do we understand this? The Chofetz Chaim writes in one location that Shabbos is a fundamental of Judaism. Why? Because the Gemara tells us that a person who violates Shabbos for whatever reason, even not as a heretic, even not defiantly, just purely as priority-wise, what we call a muman l'te'ovon, it's purely because of his desires, his conveniences. That's why he violates the Shabbos. It's considered as if he denies the Torah in its entirety. It's referred to as muman l'chol Torah kula. He's a heretic who, as if he denies, rejects the Torah in its entirety. Why? So the commentators explain that what is Shabbos? Shabbos is a testament that God is the creator of the world. If God is a creator, if the world is random, existence came out randomly, you'd say there's no rhyme or reason. But if there's a creator, and every aspect of creation was created with a specific intent, now the question is, that means there's purpose. It was created with an objective. It's not random. So if you observe the Shabbos, and we being God's testament to the world, that Hashem is the creator, to indicate that the world is not just happenstance. It didn't come about randomly, but it came about for a purpose, and every aspect of existence has value and purpose, then a person will live his life differently. If you violate the Shabbos, and you don't emulate Hashem, 6 days you shall work, and the 7th day you shall refrain, therefore it's as if you're rejecting, you're denying God. So he explains the Chofetz Chaim. He says, you have a person, he's a doctor, and he hangs out a shingle, and it says on the sign, will not be back for 2 weeks. So what does that mean, will not be back for 2 weeks? That means he still has the location, except he's absent at this moment, but he's coming back. What about if you come back after 2 weeks, you find the shingle was removed? If the shingle is removed, that means he moved out. He's not coming back. Person doesn't keep kosher, doesn't keep dietary laws. Not lahachis, not out of defiance. Because he prefers, for whatever reason, a non-kosher cuisine. That's what he prefers. Or because kosher meat is more expensive, is more costly than non-kosher meat. So it's not out of defiance. In that area, he's considered an apostate. But the rest of the Torah, he's considered a credible Jew. Why? Because the fact is, you still believe in God, except you have your Achilles' heels, you have your weakness point, your weak points in these various areas. But if a person denies God, everything becomes irrelevant. You've taken down the sign. God says, as long as you observe the Shabbos and you declare to the world that I am the Creator, then I'm here. The moment you have no regard for the Shabbos, and it's by your whim or choice, you transgress the Shabbos, God says, I'm not here. The shingle is down. God's not coming back. It's not coming back. We find that there's a word from the Shalom HaKadosh. He writes, if you take a look at the text of the Friday night Shmon Esrei, Amidah, it starts, Ato Kidashto. You've sanctified. The morning Shachris, morning service Amidah, is Yismach Moshe b'manos chelko. Moshe rejoiced with the gift of his portion. And then Mincha is Ato Echod, V'shimcha Echod. You're one, your name is one, Mi Kamcha Yisrael Goy Echad Boretz. Who's like the Jewish people, there's only one such nation in the land. What exactly is there during the week? There's a uniform Amidah, we say 3 times a day, identically, except for the closing bracha. Whether it's Sim Shalom or Shalom Rav, that's the closing bracha. But all the other blessings of the Amidah, of the Shemona Esrei, are identical. But yet, on Shabbos, although the blessings are 7 blessings, but the introduction, in terms of the Shabbos, Ato Kidashta, you've sanctified, Yismach Moshe, Moshe rejoiced, Ato Echod, Shimcha Echod. So he goes to explain that the Gemara tells us that in regard to the festivals, how do they come about? They come about, the High Court of Israel has to declare that the month is holy. They say, Mekudosh, Mekudosh. After they accept testimony when they saw the new moon, they declare the first day of the month. Whatever the first day of the month is, that will determine when the 15th of the month is. When Sukkot is, when Pesach is, when Shavuos is, whatever the first day of Sivan is. When Rosh Hashanah is. Rosh Hashanah is the first day of Tishrei. So if the first day of Tishrei is declared as the first day by the Sanhedrin, the High Court of Israel, so who makes the determination of when we have the sanctity of the Yom Tif? That's determined by the Sanhedrin, by the Bezdin. That's Mekadesh Yisrael Vazmanim. God sanctified the Jewish people, and subsequently they go and sanctify time. But Shabbos, prior to the Jewish people even coming into existence, Shabbos naturally from the very beginning of creation was innately holy. It was a holy day. Now who sanctifies the Shabbos? Baruch atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos. God is the one who sanctifies the Shabbos. That's our Shabbos. That is the basis for the sanctity of Shabbos. Now, how does the sanctification of Shabbos come about? How did God sanctify the Shabbos? The Torah tells us for 6 days God was creative. On the 7th day, God refrained from creation. Why? Because creation was completed. So what happened? What happened on the day that He refrained? Bo Shabbos bo menucha. Shabbos came. Now there was total tranquility. There was menucha. But what gave that wholesomeness, that tranquility to existence? God entered into existence. God's presence became the dwelling location. For God became the terrestrial level. Until existence was created, there was no existence. When it's completed, now God enters into existence. So the sanctity, the base for the sanctity of Shabbos is God's location, God associating himself with the terrestrial existence, with existence. Sinai, when did it become holy? When God descended on the mountain. He ascends, it's no longer holy. The burning bush, why was it Admas Kodesh? Why was it hallowed ground? Because the Shekhinah, because the divine presence was there. Whatever God is associated with, that is the basis for holiness. So why is Shabbos holy? Because God is associated with the Shabbos. God is associated with the Shabbos. That's Mekadosh Shabbos. Yom Tif, Bezdin, the High Court has to sanctify the day, then God enters into existence. So the Shalach Kodesh explains it this way. At the very beginning of Shabbos, what happens? The closing bracha of the Ma'ariv service, Friday night, is Ufros Oleinu Sukkah Shlomecha. You should spread upon us your tent of peace. What is the tent of peace? That's Shekhinah. That's God's entering into existence. When you're in God's hand, then you're what? You have every level of protection, every level of peace. That's a Ufros Oleinu. We're asking God to spread his Sukkah Shalom upon us. That we should be associated with his divine presence, with the Shekhinah. It's cited that the Arizal, that when they would say Ufros Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha, he would stand out of respect for the Shekhinah, because that was the moment the Shekhinah, the divine presence, would enter into Shabbos. So out of respect, out of reverence, he would stand. That's Ufros Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha. So what's the beginning? When you marry a woman, there are various stages of marriage. There's Kedushin, that's the betrothal. You give the ring or something of value to the wife, to the prospective wife in the presence of the witnesses. You say, Hareyat Mekudeshesli. That's betrothal. That's the beginning of the marriage relationship. And then you have the chuppah. Chuppah is you bring the wife into your domain. Now, chuppah is what? That's simcha. That's you celebrate. That's the wedding. You come out of yichud, out of sequestering yourself with your wife, you celebrate the wedding. And then afterwards, ultimately, you consummate the marriage. Right? That's the unification of the husband and wife. So he says, the Shalach Kodesh, the beginning of Shabbos, the Shekhinah is at one level. It's at an elementary level. Ato Kidashta. That's Kedushin. That's the betrothal. That's the beginning of the relationship. As the day progresses, the morning comes, Yismach Moshe Manos Chelko. Now we speak about Simcha. We're rejoicing, we're celebrating. Because this is Chuppah. Mincha time, which is after midday, the Kedusha, the holiness of the day intensifies. God's presence and existence intensifies. That's when we unify with God. This is Ato Echod V'Shimcha Echod. You are one, your name is one, Goy Echod Boretz. There's a unification of the one and the one, and that's why that's the Ichud. That's the unification of Hashem with Klal Yisrael. Therefore, it's cited that the Arizal, he would go to the mikveh, immerse himself in the ritual pool at different junctures of the day. It would be before Shabbos to prepare for the first relationship. Ato Kidashto. In the morning to the next level, because there's another level of Kedusha. The Shekhinah now enters at another level. Then he'd go again before Mincha, because now it's another level of engagement. You're engaging with the Shekhinah at another level. I'll give you an example. The Maral of Prague says this, and the Or Chaim HaKadosh says in one location. We say that Mishnah says that if 10 Jews study Torah, Shekhinah b'neiim, the divine presence is among them. If 5 Jews study Torah, Shekhinah b'neiim, the Shekhinah is among them. If 3 Jews study Torah, divine presence is among them. And if 2 study, Shekhinah b'neiim. And if 1 studies, Also, the Shekhinah is there. So the obvious question is, if the Shekhinah is there when you have one Jew studying, it's obvious when you have 10. So what does it mean? We're speaking about 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. So what does it mean, Shekhinah Beinayim? So the Maral and the Rechaim HaKodesh says, they will say this, that the different intensities of Shekhinah. When there's 10, it's a different dimension of God's presence. That's one level. So you'd say maybe only if it's 10. Anything less than 10, he doesn't associate. No, even 5. But the 5 may not be the intensity of 10. What about 3? 5, the Shekhinah is there. 3 is less than the 5. Shekhinah is there, but to a lesser degree of intensity. 2 also, but it's not the same as the 3. And the 1 is not the same as the 2. But in every one of the levels is Shekhinah Beinayim, but a different degree of Shekhinah. The same thing. Shabbos begins, Ato Kidashto. That's the Kedushin. The morning comes, it's Yismach Moshe. That's the Simcha. That's the wedding day. That's the celebration of the wedding. Mincha, it's another level. That's the Mincha. I once heard from a mashgiach. There was a person, his name was Reb Leibel Chosid. He was a grandfather of Reb Kiva Eger. And he was very, very innovative in making up different kinds of mitzvos or rituals which he drew from his understanding of other things. For instance, we find that Avraham Avinu, he was engaged in a dialogue or in a communication with Hashem. It was the 3rd day of his circumcision, and all of a sudden he sees wayfarers coming. Vayeshev Pesach oil. He's sitting at the entrance, and he says to Hashem, "Excuse me, I have to go attend to the needs of the wayfarers." So from here, the Gemara says, but you're engaged with the Shekhinah. You're engaged receiving a communication with God. How do you interrupt the conversation to go host wayfarers? So the Gemara says, in Shabbos, from here we see, Gedola hachnos orchim b'kabolas pnei Shekhinah. Greater is hosting guests than receiving the divine presence. Because otherwise, how did Abraham interrupt his conversation with God to go accommodate the needs of the guests? So we see from here, Mikan, from here, Gedola hachnos orchim, greater is hospitality than kabolas pnei Shekhinah. Now, in a shul, when you start the service on the Amud, usually you have candles burning, or you have lights. Why do you have lights? You have lights because when you have a Ner Tomid. In the shul, you have this ongoing eternal candle. Because since the Shekhinah is always in the shul or in the Beis Medrash, in the study hall, therefore that's out of respect, you have that light burning. So where the Shekhinah is, you have candles, or you have the light. During the Tefillah, right, you light candles also because you're standing, you're having an audience with Hashem, the Shekhinah, therefore you light candles out of respect for the Shekhinah. Correct? Good. So now the question is, when you have guests, do you light candles? So he says, Rabbi Leibel Chosid says, if Gedolach orchim mikabolos pnei Shekhinah, if Hashem values hospitality more than his communicating with him, so if out of respect you light candles when the Shekhinah is here, and hosting guests is greater, you light candles when you have guests coming, during hospitality. That's what he extrapolated from what? From Gedolah, Achnos Orchim, Yosef B'Kabolos Pnei Shekhinah. Those were Leibel Chosid. So now, the Gemara tells us, why do we light candles on Shabbos? Right? We light candles. There's a rabbinical mitzvah that a person is supposed to have light candles for Shabbos. We say, Baruch Lahadlak there, Shel Shabbos, to light the candle of Shabbos. Everybody agrees, minimally, you have to have 2 candles. One for Zohar, one for Shomer. The first tablets, it says, Zohar Yom Shabbos Lakacho, remember the Shabbos to keep it holy. And the second set of tablets, it says, Shomer Yom Shabbos Lakacho. That's the refrain. So we have 1 candle for Zohar, 1 candle for Shomer, minimally. Other people have other customs. They light for as many people in the household, for the children, the husband and wife. But everybody agrees minimally you have 2 candles. So why do you have 2 candles? So Gemara says for Shalom Bayis, because you can't function in the dark. So therefore you illuminate the home to have light, to be able to function and celebrate the Shabbos. You can't celebrate in darkness. However, according to what we're saying, what is Shabbos? Shabbos is the Shekhinah enters into our domain, into our lives, into our existence. So the lighting of the candles, similar to when you light the candles at the Omut, before the Amidah, before the Tefillah, which is an indication that the Shekhinah is here, identically, when Shabbos begins, you light candles right before Shabbos to accept the Shabbos. Of course, that's out of respect for Shabbos, you light candles. But into whose home does the Shekhinah come? The home that they observe Zochar v'Shamar. The home that they observe the positive commandment of Shabbos. Zochar Shabbos Lakacho. And Shomer Shabbos Lakacho. And they observe, they refrain from doing the creative activity, what we refer to as the 39 Malachos, that's Zochar v'Shamar. But if Chas v'Sholom, a person doesn't observe the Shabbos, the Shekhinah doesn't enter into his domain. Doesn't enter his domain. The Shulchan Aruch rules, code of laws, that regardless of what you have on your head, on your mind during the week, which the moment Shabbos comes, you're supposed to put all that out of your mind. Not supposed to think about it. Why? Because Shabbos, we say a person dresses differently on Shabbos, a person speaks differently on Shabbos, we walk different, our stride is different. During the week we take large strides. Shabbos we take hilucha b'Shabbos lo yiki hilucha b'chol, right? Our walking, our strides on Shabbos should not be as our strides on during the weekday. Our dress, our speech, we don't discuss business on Shabbos. Everything is shame. Why? Because Shabbos is special. Right? So you'd say because you have to somehow extricate yourself from the morass of the weekday. Now, could you imagine a person gets a call that the king wants to be hosted in your home? That's what you get a call. And you have certain financial issues on your mind. Do you know what it means? That you should have the privilege to host the king? This is the ultimate privilege, the ultimate honor. Whatever you had in your mind, in a moment is gone. It's totally cleansed from your mind. You're preoccupied with the excitement of having the privilege to attend to all the needs of the king. And this is the ultimate king. Let's say a person still is attached to other things in his mind and his emotion. It's a disrespect. Because if you truly would revere and value the king sufficiently, it is impossible to have anything else in mind other than the king. The preparations, the merit, the privilege, whatever else it goes with that. So how could you be worried? How could you be down on Shabbos? If you're down on Shabbos, it's a little bit of a problem, right? So therefore, we say, you speak differently on Shabbos. The king is here. Could you imagine? The king comes to your house. What do you speak about? You're going to speak about the money you lost in the stock market. To the king, it's all meaningless. It means nothing. What are you talking about? There's something wrong with you. Is that what you talk about? In the presence of the king? You dress? How do you dress this way? The king is here. The Shekhinah is here. Where's the respect? Evidently, it's a problem. You don't value that. You don't acknowledge that. What about the way you walk? You walk in a more refined manner in the presence of the king. Where you're rushing off to? Again, it's an issue. It's not sufficient reverence, sufficient respect. Therefore, you speak differently, you dress differently, and you what? And the subject matter is different. Everything is different. What happens if it isn't different? See, there's a claim against the person, Chas v'Sholom. Now, minig Ashkenaz, the custom of Ashkenaz is Shabbos. We say in Aramaic prayer prior to the Musaf. Yikum Porkon Min Shmayo. Salvation should come from heaven. And what do we ask for? We ask for health. We ask for good sight, good vision. We ask for children should be well, or physical things. What relevance does this have to Shabbos? What relevance? And then we say Mishaberach afterwards. But why? What is all this? And Hashem should watch over the Torah scholars, the leaders, the Torah leaders. Why all of a sudden this? The answer is it's not simple. Are we really on par? Even though outwardly we may be playing the role, but inwardly, our minds, our emotion, we should be ecstatic. Do you see everybody ecstatic about Shabbos? People looking at their watches when it's going to be over with. You know? So they could call whatever it is. They could see what kind of emails they got. And speak to the stockbroker. Or whatever else after a Yom Tif. That's what happens. If that's the case, there's a serious claim. There's a tremendous level of prosecution. If there's prosecution, chas v'sholom, you know what happens? It has consequences. One has failing health. One has failing eyesight. One, God forbid it compromises his family, his children. So Rabbi Yehuda Chosid says, that's what we say, the special tefillah of Yakum Porkin Min Shmayo. We say to God, there should be a salvation despite our shortcomings. He should protect our health, give us eyesight, protect our families, all that, because factually, we're far from perfect. That's why we say this tefillah, this special prayer, this special supplication, right before Musaf on Shabbos for that reason. But that's the essence. So this is Atu Kidashto, Yisrach Moshe, and what? And Ato Echod V'Shimcha Echod. The Gemara tells us in one location that a non-Jew is not permitted to observe the Shabbos. That a non-Jew keeps the Shabbos, he's liable for the death penalty. Why? Why is it so serious? He also wants to have his day of rest. Every religion, they have the day of rest. The Christians have Sunday, the Muslims have Friday, and l'havdil elef avdolos, we have Shabbos. Because we're a testament to creation. Sunday has no relevance to creation, Friday has no relevance to creation. So by them it's a day of rest, whatever that's called. So why, if a non-Jew observes the Shabbos, why does it have such serious liability? That he's deserving of the death penalty? So simply would say, if a person goes, today, the law is so ignored and so glossed over. At one time, if a person was not in the army, and we were in an army uniform with any type of insignia, he'd be arrested. Even if you were an American citizen, how do you wear? Unless you were a member of the armed forces and you served, you weren't permitted to wear the uniform with the insignia on it. It was against the law. Who are you putting yourself forth as what? What about if you're not even an American? You're a foreigner wearing an American uniform. Who are you impersonating? You're impersonating an American officer. At one time you could be taken out and be shot for that. Shabbos, the Torah says, Osi beini v'nechem. It's a sign of distinction between me and Klal Yisrael. Ki ana Hashem mekadishchem. That I am God who sanctified you. All of a sudden, the non-Jew, the Gentile, he's observing Shabbos. What's he observing Shabbos? It's like the imposter coming, say, I am the prince. Only the princes are admitted into this ball. If you're not a prince, you're not welcome. And you're coming in under false pretenses. You don't belong here. Therefore, it's chayv miso. That's a simple way you learn it. But if you take a look in the Medrash tells us that Shabbos, he says, could you imagine the king and queen are having a very private conversation. And somebody goes and eavesdrops on that conversation between the king and queen. The Medrash says, don't you think that man deserves to be killed? Don't you think he deserves to be put to death? Where does this man have the audacity to infringe on the privacy of the king and queen, to eavesdrop on that communication? It's understood that person deserves to be put to death. So the Medrash says, Shabbos, there's an intimate relationship between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. The non-Jew coming in and wanting to observe to Shabbos, it's like eavesdropping. You don't belong here. So that infringement of that, it's not impersonation. It's an infringement. Because of that infringement, therefore he deserves to be put to death. So now, what is Shabbos? A person doesn't observe the Shabbos, as the Chofetz Chaim says. It's like the shingle is off, Hashem says, I'm out of here. We said, when does the Shekhinah come? We have two candles, one for Zohar, one for Shomer. The first commandment, set of tablets, the second set of tablets. So when is the Shekhinah here? If you observe the Zohar v'Shomer. If you don't observe the Zohar v'Shomer, you have no relevance to the Shekhinah. You have no relevance to the Divine Presence. The Divine Presence doesn't enter into your home. Doesn't enter. That's the shingle has been taken down. But if a person does observe the Shabbos, then what happens? Then you have relevance to the Shekhinah. So therefore, I was thinking, one approach, Hashem says to Moshe, let the future generations, as you're gathering large assemblies of Jews, to teach them in a public setting the laws of Shabbos, Hilchas Isa v'Heter, the laws which pertain to what's not permitted, what is permitted. The future generation should learn from you also, Kadesh Kolis Ben Bonai, I should be extolled among my children. What's extolled among my children? That when do we have a sense? When is the Shekhinah here? If the Shekhinah is here, we have a sense of God. We have a sense of God's presence. If you have a sense of God's presence, then you sing God's presence. Then you sing